What if Bill Gates never created Microsoft? What if the spark that ignited the personal computer revolution came from somewhere else, or perhaps never happened at all? Imagine a world where the digital landscape took a completely different path, where the familiar icons and interfaces we know today never existed. The computer on your desk, the phone in your pocket, and even the way you connect to the internet might look and feel entirely different. The devices we rely on could have evolved in unexpected ways. Microsoft didn't just sell software, it set the standard for personal computing, shaping how millions of people interacted with technology every day. For decades, personal computer meant Windows computer. The Windows operating system became the default, influencing everything from business to education. This standardization made computers accessible and software development scalable, allowing innovation to flourish on a massive scale. Remove Microsoft and the entire tech industry's winners and losers shift. The balance of power among tech giants would be dramatically different. The very concept of what a computer is could have evolved along a slower, more fragmented timeline, with no single company leading the charge. Exploring this alternate reality helps us appreciate the chain of events that shaped our world, and how one company's vision can ripple through history. What companies and technologies would have filled the vacuum left by Microsoft? Would Apple, IBM, or a completely new player have taken the lead? Would we have a unified digital world, or a patchwork of competing empires, each with their own rules and standards? Let's travel back to the 1970s and 80s. The wild frontier of personal computing, where innovation was rapid but the future was uncertain. By understanding the pre-Microsoft era, we can guess how things might have grown without them, and what paths technology could have taken. It's a journey into a world almost like ours, but with key differences, where every choice leads to a new possibility. The click of a mouse could have led you down a completely different digital path, changing the way you work, play, and connect. Let's fire up our imagination and see where this road not taken leads. The possibilities are endless. Let's get started. Before Microsoft, personal computers were a hobbyist's playground. Kits and machines for tinkerers, experimenters, and those who loved to build from scratch. The early days of computing were filled with excitement and uncertainty, as enthusiasts gathered in garages and workshops, piecing together the future one circuit at a time. In the late 1970s, there was no single operating system. CP/M from Digital Research and Gary Kildall was the closest thing to a standard, but even it was just one option among many. The landscape was fragmented, with each system offering its own quirks and possibilities. In our alternate timeline, imagine IBM choosing CP/M for its PC instead of Microsoft's OS. This single decision could have changed the entire direction of the tech industry, setting a new course for decades to come. Digital Research could have become the software giant of the 1980s, with Gary Kildall as a household name, celebrated as the visionary who shaped the digital age. The company's influence might have reached into every home and office. The foundation of personal computing would rest on different code and philosophy, with new ideas about how people and machines should interact. The software world would have evolved along a different path, with unique priorities and innovations. The early computer world was a patchwork of operating systems, Apple's for Macs, UCSD-P system for portability, and more. Each platform had its own strengths, weaknesses, and loyal communities. Without Microsoft's gravity, this diversity might have lasted much longer, with no single company able to unify the market under one banner. Buying a computer would mean choosing both hardware and a unique OS, making compatibility a constant challenge. Every purchase would be a leap into a different digital ecosystem. Intense competition would drive innovation but also confusion for customers. The market would be vibrant but also fragmented and unpredictable. The simple act of running your favorite program on any machine would be far from simple. Compatibility issues would be a daily frustration, and software developers would face endless hurdles. The digital frontier would be wilder, more chaotic, and harder for the average person to navigate. Mastering technology would require patience, persistence, and a willingness to learn. The age of the universal PC might never have arrived, leaving us in a world where every computer was truly unique and the digital landscape was forever diverse. Microsoft's first big hit was MS-DOS, the operating system that powered the IBM PC and soon after, its many clones. This single piece of software became the backbone of the personal computer revolution, quietly shaping the way millions of people interacted with technology. MS-DOS created a standard, Software written for one machine worked on almost all. Suddenly, businesses and homes could rely on a common platform, making it easier for people to share programs, files, and knowledge. Without Microsoft, this crucial link is missing, and the computer world stays fragmented. Every manufacturer would have their own system, and compatibility would be a constant headache. Imagine a 1980s computer store, dozens of brands, each with its own unique operating system, none of them able to run the same software or even use the same accessories. Buying a computer from Company A meant you could only use its software. Your friend's machine from Company B was incompatible. Even simple things like sharing a document or a game would be a challenge. Sharing files or skills would be nearly impossible. Offices and schools would struggle to collaborate, and families would find it hard to help each other with technology. This lack of standardization would slow down personal computer adoption. People would hesitate to invest in technology that might quickly become obsolete or isolated. Software developers would hesitate to invest in small, fragmented markets, making software scarcer and more expensive. Innovation would be stifled, and fewer people would have access to useful programs. The evolution of graphical interfaces would be scattered, many GUIs, each tied to specific hardware. There would be no shared visual language, making computers harder to learn and use. The market would resemble Apple's integrated approach. Digital islands, no universal desktop. Each brand would be its own world with little connection to the others. The idea of a single familiar interface for everyone would be a distant dream. Learning a new computer would mean starting from scratch every time. The PC revolution would be slower, less accessible, and more confusing. Everyday users would face constant frustration, and technology would feel out of reach for many. The digital world would feel like a collection of disconnected islands, each isolated and alone, instead of the connected landscape we know today. Without Microsoft Office, productivity software would have different rulers. In the 80s and early 90s, WordPerfect and Lotus 123 were the titans, powerful, feature-rich, and beloved by professionals. Without Microsoft, these companies would have dominated longer, shaping our digital habits. WordPerfect's reveal codes and Lotus's data tools would define how we work. Software development tools would also shift. Borland's Turbo Pascal or C++ might have become the go-to for programmers. Programming could remain a specialized skill, with fewer user-friendly tools and less software variety. You'd use WordPerfect for writing, Lotus for numbers, and Harvard Graphics for presentations, each with its own quirks. Getting programs to work together would be a major challenge. The concept of a unified software suite might have taken much longer to emerge, or required a coalition of companies. It would be a world of specialists, not generalists. What if open-source software rose sooner? Without Microsoft's dominance, Linux or another open-source OS could have become mainstream much earlier. The fragmented market would create demand for a free, universal alternative. The GNU project, started in the 80s, was already building the pieces. A unifying kernel like Linux might have arrived sooner. Manufacturers could adopt a free OS, competing on hardware and support instead of software licenses. The business model would shift, software would be free, and companies would sell services and hardware. Open-source philosophy would be central, not niche. Users would be more involved in fixing bugs and customizing their systems. Customization would be king, but computers might be less user-friendly for beginners. Without a single company driving usability, open-source desktops could remain complex for longer. The trade-off: more freedom, but less simplicity. The very idea of paying for an operating system might seem strange. The PC market's explosive growth in the 80s and 90s was fueled by the Wintel standard, Windows on Intel chips. Without Microsoft, growth would be slower and more fragmented. Instead of open PC clones, we'd see hardware-software bundles, each brand with its own OS. This would create stable experiences, but lock users into specific ecosystems. Competition would be between vertically integrated giants, leading to higher prices and less choice. Businesses and schools would struggle with incompatible systems, making collaboration and digital literacy harder. The digital divide could be even wider. Hardware innovation would be less focused. No single OS pushing for faster chips. The relentless upgrade cycle would slow, and the average desktop might be less powerful. The race for speed would be a marathon, not a sprint. the internet would still exist, but our first experiences of the web would be different. Without Microsoft bundling Internet Explorer, Netscape Navigator would likely remain the dominant browser. Netscape could define early web standards, making the internet more open. Or it could become its own controlling force. Web development would focus on open standards, not proprietary Microsoft tech. The rise of browsers like Firefox and Chrome might play out differently, or not at all. The infamous browser wars and antitrust lawsuits would never happen, changing the fate of companies like Google. The web might be less fractured with cross-platform technologies from the start. Netscape could become the gateway to the internet for a generation. The internet's evolution would be shaped by different hands. What about Bill Gates himself? His drive and intellect wouldn't go to waste. Without Microsoft, he might have become a legendary programmer, a tech entrepreneur in another field, or a pioneer in AI or networking. He could be revered by programmers, but less famous to the public. His business acumen would likely lead to success, but on a different scale. The Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, fueled by Microsoft wealth, might not exist, or would be much smaller. Gates might have become a professor, researcher, or venture capitalist, shaping tech in quieter ways. His passion for solving big problems would remain, but his global impact would be different. The world would still benefit from his intelligence, but in a more focused way. A different set of circumstances could have led him down a completely different path. The story of Bill Gates reminds us, one person's choices can change the world. Our thought experiment shows how the absence of one person and one company can reshape history. Without Microsoft, the PC revolution would be slower, more chaotic, and less accessible. Titans like WordPerfect and Lotus might have ruled longer. Netscape could have been the gateway to the web. Open source might have captured the desktop sooner, changing software economics. Hardware would evolve differently without the pressure of Windows upgrades. Bill Gates's impact would be profound, but different, perhaps less global, more specialized. History is a branching tree of possibilities, not a straight line. A single decision or piece of code can set the world on a new course. The digital world we know was not inevitable, it was built, choice by choice. By imagining a world without Microsoft, we appreciate the fragile, fascinating way our own world came to be. It's a powerful reminder. One person's path can change everything.